Hello, everyone, and welcome to this lecture about quantitative research. So in this lecture, we're going to focus on the positivist side of the research philosophy. You remember we have interpretivist, and then we also have the positivist side. So we are going to focus now on the positivist side for quantitative research. So let me start with a quick introduction about quantitative research. So the first thing is what I just said, that the quantitative research assumes a positivist paradigm, so make sure that you are in the right place. The thing that I talked about in the last lecture when I mentioned that you should be coherent, well, that's the thing. If you are on the positivist side, make sure that you are in using quantitative methods, okay? So that's the first thing. In this lecture of today, we're going to focus more on the data collection rather than on data analysis. Data analysis will be the next step. And kind of the outcome of today's lecture is that you can reflect on what you want to do for your thesis, or how can you elaborate, or how can you do a quantitative research. So it's also a lot about reflection. Like, try to think about an example and try to apply what you are learning in this lecture. And finally, maybe something that you can do by the end of the lecture is to propose or write some initial research design ideas, because that can be useful later for your thesis, and also for the, it's going to be the quantitative lab when we're going to work on actually doing an analysis and everything. So after this quick introduction, let me move to some important concepts that we are going to explore in this session. The first is the difference between data and information, and it's not that difficult to understand where are the differences, but the definition of data is that data are facts or known facts that can be used for inference. So it's very important that we understand that data are facts, right? Like something that we have proved, and something that we can also use to analyze later. So the data is something that you can prove that exists, because you can you have it, is a fact, and also that fact is useful to analyze it or to make an inference. If you can't use it to analyze something, is not really data, it's just something that exists there. And also if it is something that you don't have the actual evidence that you have it, like for example an idea or something like that, that is not data, because you don't have it's not a known fact that you have the evidence that it is there. So it's a combination of the two things. It's something that you have the evidence that is in there, that it exists, it's a fact, and also that you can use it to analyze something. And then the next step on complexity is that if you organize data in a way that you can analyze it, it's going to become information. So hopefully we will learn how to collect data, but also with a strategy to make it as information in the end. Okay, so we will collect data, but we will be very strategically when we collect the data to make it a piece of information in the end. Okay, so it's important that you understand more or less the differences, because we are going to talk a lot about data. That's kind of the objective of today's lecture. And just to finish, let me tell you, or let me explain you, that we usually have two types of data, or two different sources of data. It's primary data and secondary data. Primary data is data that is generated from the original source. So it is something that you capture, like what we just mentioned, facts that can be used for inference or for analysis, that comes from the original source. So if you are studying, for example, investors in China, and you need, or you want to have primary data, you need to collect that data from the Chinese investors, directly from them. And the other one is secondary data, when there is someone in between the main source and you as a researcher. So in the same example, if you want to study Chinese investors and you want, or you have secondary data, it's because that data was produced with someone in between the Chinese investors and you. So sometimes it can be I don't know, like Bloomberg, for example, like an information financial information system, or for example, maybe the news, or maybe another research, or maybe the government, they have some reports. So there is someone in between your object of study and you. So this is kind of a brief introduction for what we are going to do today. So remember, quantitative methods, quantitative research is related to the positivist paradigm. That's something very important. And we are going to focus on collecting the data. And you now know what is data and what's the difference with information. And you also know the difference between primary data and secondary data.